Yeah, it's on it.
Say it again.
No, you don't have to.
Okay. So I guess the first item is we have the minutes from the July 26th meeting. I guess I entertain a motion to approve those.
Yeah, I move we approve the minutes.
A second.
I second.
All in favor? Okay. The minutes are approved. Next, we have information items for discussion. And we were going to get an update on the Parks and Rec Board appointments and reorganization meeting. Would you like to do that?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So Parks and Rec, the minutes from both the recent Parks and Rec meetings were included in your packet. They ended up selecting as chair Dennis Callan and co-chair, vice chair Carolyn Giordano. I think they've had a great couple of meetings so far this summer. I think they're a very engaged group, very productive. And, I'm looking forward to working with them all. And I'm glad we had people in the borough willing to volunteer their time for it.
Also note that they appointed, they're going with a rotating secretary, and that seems to be working. And then they also recommended in favor of creation of the Master Park Plan Ad Hoc Committee, with the caveat that it include 4 of their members.
That's correct.
And that will go to council, I guess, at the next meeting?
Yeah, I do. I'll have to talk with council leadership, but I've asked that we have that letter in the packet for the October 6th council meeting, because I'll also want to ask council about applying for the 2 grants that the Parks and Rec Board approved us applying for, or recommended in favor of us applying for, that being the PICO Green Region Grant and the DCNR Fall Bonus Round to pay for virtually all the cost of doing the Master Park Plan.
Okay. It's in the review of the 100 Conway energy report. I guess that's you, Eric.
Yeah, so I'll kick it off and then I'll send it to Cynthia. So over the last few months, a coworker, Cynthia Fowler, had completed an energy audit, assessment of the 100 Conway building, this property. And that was looking at the various components of the building, your energy usage, and then recommendations on energy improvements that could be made to the building to help you guide your future planning, with Borough Hall, various improvements. So Cynthia, maybe just want to give like the kind of rundown of the report and summary of what you reviewed and what your findings were. You're muted.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We attended our survey on January 12th, 2022. Our goal is to be able to ascertain all of the equipment operating and using energy, whether it's electric or gas, throughout the facility. And we also have a look at the envelope and whether or not it's a tight envelope. After we counted lights, took pictures of tags of all of the equipment we could access, I did an estimate of how much air leakage might be coming through those windows. The office area, for example, had at least 3 electric heaters operating. It was a pretty cold day. So that was a very big clue that I needed to take a closer look at the windows as I walked around. We accessed the roof. We were able to observe the equipment in the attics, on the upper roof. We were in the engine room as well, all of the equipment there. Yes, we went into practically every room and almost every roof. The only roof we didn't have access to was the, severely sloped roof with exhaust in the back area where all the vans and the, what do you call those? It's not the engine room, but there was another room that had trucks mounted underneath. So we were able to count the lights in that space, but getting to the roof was problematic. So what we typically do in an ASHRAE Level 2 audit is also take a look at and acquire your electric and gas bills. So what we're going to do is find out how much you used and spent on electricity and gas in the previous 12 months. And then we calculate the likely amount being used by specific pieces of equipment. For example, once we had a count of all of the lighting and the type of lighting, we could actually estimate how much of that lighting impact, your energy bill every year. And there's a breakdown called end use breakdown calculation later on in the report that estimates the relative percentage of use for different types of equipment, like your plug loads, your lighting, all of the HVAC equipment for heating, your domestic water, hot water heater, I believe, it was gas, along with, how the chiller is operating, their current chiller, how your boiler is operating, and their contribution to your energy usage. I tend to use the Pennsylvania Utility Commission's algorithms to calculate, how much savings you're likely to get if you're replacing equipment for more efficient equipment. And they have specific calculations for how many full load hours you can use for heating in order to get a consumption value versus how many full load hours for cooling that you can use in order to determine and estimate how much you can save for cooling if you did. For example, I had one low cost that said, if you raised the thermostat 2 degrees, you could save this much because the chiller wouldn't be operating as heavily if, people could tolerate it being warmer. Most people can't tolerate it being colder in the winter, but that leads to, why is it so cold? And that's how we got to the windows. Another way we got to the windows. Part of the problem with the windows is that they're operable and the latches don't latch very well. And in quite a lot of spaces, they weren't latched at all. So that becomes a load to your heating equipment. So what we try to look at in an energy audit is what are the offsets. If you can actually reduce the amount of infiltration in the winter into the building, then your heating load can go down. Okay. Alternatively, even in the summer, if you can reduce infiltration in the summer, it's the same effect. Your chiller won't be working as hard to keep people comfortable in the space. Let's see. What else did I give you? I gave you, typically we try to benchmark the building against historically, typical buildings, like a typical office, according to Energy Star would be using energy use intensity would be 52.9. Meanwhile, you're actually operating at 33.8. So it's not horrible. So, the typical fire station is at 63.5 and the typical police station is at 63.5 energy use intensity. So it's a mixed facility, and I gave you the table so you can actually see where you stand with the rest of the country and how your facility is operating. So there are things happening, particularly in the way that you operate, that actually improve your energy efficiency. And your bills, well, they don't seem to be substantially huge, but, well, that's a relative concept. They might be big to you. But what it meant was when I went to actually calculate your savings, your potential savings, the numbers, the paybacks, I don't know if you notice on the summary, the paybacks on replacing the windows is pretty horrible. It's like 150 years. And so why would you do that? So the question becomes, well, you might consider for those spaces where people are the most uncomfortable, you might consider reducing that scope just, to improve the payback. Now, my understanding is the building was built in 1960, but there's a 1997 upgrade, and I don't know if that included the windows, but the typical for metal and aluminum windows, the typical lifespan is 20 to 30 years. So you're around 25 years. if it was in 1997. You're over 60 years if these windows were installed in 1960 when the building was built. So they're either very close to end of life or they are at end of life. Alternatively, you can actually find ways to get to actually seal the windows better, prevent the windows from being opened up. You might consider actually getting quotes on putting more sealant around the windows so that you're not getting so much infiltration. You also got from us an estimate of replacing the boiler, which is definitely out of end of life. I believe you also got a quote from the mechanical portion of our. Is that true, Eric? I believe they got a quote.
No, the mechanical, that project is actually awarded for the mechanical.
Okay, that's right. So let's see. I don't have anything to add about this service domestic water heaters. What else? Are there any specific questions I could speak to?
Well, I mean, I think that the windows seems to be a big issue because it's quite expensive to replace all these windows. And I guess we did determine that they were replaced as part of that.
Yeah, it sounded like from Cynthia. Well, first of all, Cynthia, thank you for your work on this and thank you for that summary. And Ken Watson was able to later confirm that the windows were replaced, if I remember that email correctly, around 97. So Cynthia, it looks like your intuition was kind of spot on with that.
Yeah, it's just that, we've got a lot of projects to do in the borough and, so anything we can do to, sort of extend the life of these windows. I mean, it sounds like if the latches don't latch, we could make the latches latch and we could take some of your ideas about the sealant. It's just that, there's a lot going on here right now. And 150-year payback is not, obviously we're going to have to replace these windows at some point, but it's not causing a major issue. I mean, the boiler is, when you say it's at end of life, is it not functional now, or?
I believe it's still working. It's just working inefficiently. And what we were trying to suggest is if you operate it to failure, to consider Rob Gould's recommendations, possibly getting not a condensing boiler, which is a lot more energy efficient.
Okay, I was going to say, I believe the situation, the boiler, your boiler is functioning now.
Yeah.
It's old.
Right.
So it is going to fail at some point. Right. So, it's time to plan. If you're going to look at a mechanical system, replacing the air handlers now, which definitely need to be replaced, that's the next piece of mechanical equipment that you need to be planning for its replacement.
But it's my understanding that we also wanted to wait a bit until the technology.
It is still functioning. I think there's two. It needs to be replaced. There's the natural replacement for it would be to go to a natural gas condensing boiler. However, that would replace it, easy, change it out. But if the borough has other objectives they're looking to, carbon-related objectives, then that was going to take a little bit more planning and forethought for replacement.
Right, but I mean, I think the thing to highlight is that even though I think that project had a 3,000-year payback, okay, it doesn't really matter how long the payback is. Because if the equipment is failed, then you have to replace it.
Right, and that's where one of those, and Cynthia can fill me in if I miss anything, but that's where, right, you're not going to replace the boiler because it's more energy efficient. You're going to replace it because it needs to be replaced. Right. Because the mechanical system is going to fail. With the benefit of getting a more efficient or less carbon intensive system.
Right. So that seems like a reasonable thing. I mean, and the lights, I mean, that seems like kind of a no-brainer. Yeah. The payback is fairly short.
Yeah. And the lights were originally part of the scope of work in our BVRPC streetlight replacement project. However, due to some supply issues and issues with the contractor, the borough itself is going to have to look into that. So I'm really glad that Cynthia included that information in her report.
Right, but
we'll definitely want to
fluorescent LED upgrades are almost always have a short payback.
Yeah, and actually to Jeff's credit, I think in Public Works, I think you all already started doing something like that, right?
Yeah, so we switched our shop lights over to that. So our can lights in the shop all got switched to LED, and then we did the field house. You know, we switched that to LED, and we're just gonna keep pushing on.
Yeah, I mean, so my only side note from experience, and you had the same experience in the borough, is be careful with the light levels. Because every LED conversion is all of a sudden you walk in and it's like.
I went through the same evaluation of my own house. I was replacing the LED and pay particular attention to the color and intensity, right?
Okay, so Rob, I just want to leave opportunity for Rob or Michelle to comment.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Michelle.
No, I had a question about, do we know that, I wasn't able to find it in the audit, although it might be there, the age of the boiler currently and what its anticipated life. It's like, you never know when something's going to fail, but based on the information we have, what's the time frame we've got on this boiler? And the main thing I worry about is a boiler in a building that serves, is important like this, failing in the middle of winter and the borough not being able to get a replacement because of some supply issues. So is there any way we can plan ahead or protect against that, or just proactively plan to replace it before, within the anticipated lifespan?
It was installed in 97. Right, when I talked to Wild McLean, it was on the edge, end of life. I sent them a picture of the tag and he explained, yes, it's time to think about replacing it.
Okay, so we don't want to wait until it fails, in other words, right? I mean, that's the recommendation would probably be.
Right, how long it takes to replace a boiler. But like you said, if it's in the middle of winter, you wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we just need to sort of maybe give some thought to the risks and benefits of waiting for better technology versus being stuck, scrambling to replace something and maybe being limited in our choices due to need and availability. So I don't have an answer for that. I just wanted to flag the issue and see if anybody had any thoughts on the right way to approach that.
Well, if you're attempting to go carbon neutral and you're putting in an electric boiler, you have to actually verify you have the power to do that.
Okay.
And I'm not convinced we actually looked into that quite yet.
I think Michelle, as a side to this study, when we're looking at the overall systems in the building, we had evaluated, Rob Gold, our colleague, kind of evaluated some options for the boiler. And if you were to go into electric, that would also then start keying into electrical upgrades to the building will be required for a larger service to accommodate that type of electrical usage. So the scope of the project would expand a bit because you'd also do electrical upgrades and boiler upgrades.
Meanwhile, Wild McLean makes a condensing boiler that will fit exactly where your existing is. And it's natural gas.
I can research it. There was a supplemental memo that spoke to this boiler. I can pull that back up. It might have been circulated at some point, but.
Yeah, and it definitely, maybe what we could do, Eric, maybe if you could look, since it's been a few months now, maybe you could look at that memo again, see if there are any relevant updates to it, and then we can recirculate it at next month's meeting and have a more detailed conversation about the boiler replacement.
Okay.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from what Cynthia said, it sounds as though, unless something, we should probably keep tabs on the availability of that model. That would be an easy replacement, because it's just sort of one factor in a bunch of things that might, play into our decision to keep waiting for better, for less carbon intensive technology to develop versus say we can't risk another winter. So, knowing that we'd be able to replace it easily with something that's currently on the market and fits and is available is really helpful information. So, thanks.
Okay.
So I guess we're going to move on to the Elmwood Avenue channel repair.
Yeah, I guess do we need Cynthia for anything else? Cynthia, I think you're good. Thanks for coming.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. This is just like kind of the update of what.
Yeah, just if you could just give like an overview for the committee, Eric, about why we're proposing this for the 2023 budget and what this project is.
Right, so this is at the dead end of Elm Avenue. You have that pedestrian bridge that connects Untitled to Elm Avenue. And it's a wood bridge that goes over the creek culvert and the creek channel. And each side of that channel is those gabion baskets, which is the wire baskets with the stone in them. Well, if you ever stop at the bridge and look down, if you take a look, you'll see there's a significant amount of stone not in those baskets anymore. Those baskets they're easy to stack and break, but eventually they do break down. So the basket walls are starting to fail, and then there's also a piece of stone wall just below the bridge where it's getting washed out in the bottom that needs to be rebuilt. The added part of that is that when that wood pedestrian bridge was constructed at some point, they built that right on top of the gabion baskets. So the bridge foundations are actually sitting on top of the baskets, which are losing stone. So the whole, there's two parts of it. The walls need to be reestablished and fixed. And then the bridge is sitting on the baskets. The bridge has to come out. And the bridge, and you're well aware of it, is aging. It's a wood bridge that's starting to deteriorate at this point. So in order to maintain the pedestrian connection, we need to be upgrading that bridge, replacing that wood bridge to maintain that access there. So we had kind of just done a preliminary look at it, what would be involved to fix it, and what the cost would be to do that. And I think that the budgetary cost was to reconstruct the walls about $150,000, and the budgetary number for the bridge is about $50,000, but that number can vary depending on what side of the bridge, what style of bridge we put back on there. But it's one of those projects. It's within their right of way. You're responsible for it, and the walls need to be maintained.
So let me ask, and this is not like, this is just a point of information. I'm not suggesting this, but the walls would need to fix, like, let's say there was no more bridge. The bridge was gone. Right. The wall would still need to be fixed. Right.
So this is the Indian Creek. It's the actual creek channel that runs right through there. And the walls on the side are failing, and they have to be replaced. So, and you have roadway on either side of it. So it's not like you can just let it go and let it wash back out. You need to maintain those walls, so they have to be repaired. The bridge is your discretionary item.
And just to think outside the box a little bit, I mean, is this, given that we're likely to be acquiring the property adjacent that also has the channel, is this the perfect place for the bridge here, or could it move?
Well, I would say could the bridge move? Maybe. The problem is, right, so at the dead end of Elm, that is your right of way connecting two roads. Yeah. Once you go above that, you might be acquiring the west side of the creek. Yeah. You're not acquiring the other side.
Oh, I see. Good point.
That's someone's property. Yes, okay. So I like your idea. It'd be great to move a bridge in the park. That'd be all great. I got it. But the bridge is not. Okay.
And I would just maybe throw out there, just, thinking about how the roads are laid out and such. If it was further up towards Street Elmwood, then the residents that live on the south side wouldn't get as much of a benefit.
I got it. Okay. So,
and what about, would there be a grant opportunity for the, riparian buffer, stormwater kinds of grants that they did across the street in Lower Marion and Short Ridge, to prevent erosion? I'm just wondering if there would be grant money to.
No, because this is armor. So the Short Ridge, what they do, stream bank restoration, where you're naturalizing the sides of the stream with vegetation, plantings, and salt. There's a distinction between that and armored. So an armored stream bank is a wall. It's something that's not natural. In this situation, and to restore that, you're going back like 30, 40 feet from the stream. That just doesn't exist here. This is a creek that runs through your road, effectively. So it would be treated, it just happens to be an open creek. It really would be no different from a maintenance standpoint than if you had a bridge, like let's say Elm Avenue went to Wynwood and it's just a creek culvert under a road.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that scenario.
Right, okay.
The other importance of this project, if I may, is as the borough continues to work to repair and improve its stormwater system to reduce flooding in the borough, ultimately a lot of that water, especially from the north side, is ultimately going to flow into Indian Creek. Hence what kind of also made us think, well, let's start where the water is going to end up going and then kind of work our way backwards in terms of repairing and expanding our stormwater system.
Yeah, so it's just one of those maintenance items that needs to be addressed.
Right, but I mean, if we're going to be looking, I'm sure, at ways to offset the cost of improving the Elmwood property. So, I mean, this could be part of whatever that fundraising effort is. Not really. Not really. Okay.
Yeah, this is kind of just, I mean,
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we'll be able to do for the pre-Elmwood property, right. And this is just I hope these aren't words that haunt me someday. This is like a necessary evil kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me restate it another way. To the extent that we can offset some of those other costs, it frees up.
Money is fungible. Yeah.
Right, that's all. Mm-hmm. Okay, I just want to make sure that Michelle has a chance to comment at all.
Thanks, Ira. So yeah, I guess this is kind of now it seems like a dumb question. I was thinking before Rob asked him, but I'm going to follow up anyway because I want to make sure I understood. So do I understand correctly that as part of, assuming that we were to acquire 3 Elmwood and we were to sort of look towards stream bank restoration, there's no consideration of doing something other than replacing the existing, Eric, you used the particular term and I forgot, basically walled-in stream banks. There'd be no thought ever to restoring natural stream banks on either west or east side. Is that a literal, like a physical impossibility or more of a cost?
I think, maybe clear. I think there's 2 separate things we're looking at here. This project that we're talking about, we're talking in the limits of like the dead end of Elm Avenue. It's those walls there. What you do on the 3 Elmwood property about potentially removing those stone walls at some point, or renaturalizing or reconnecting that's a whole nother project that could be undertaken.
Okay, so the $150,000 to restore the walls was just for that limited dead end.
This is to repair the sections of walls that are that flank your Wynwood Road and Elm Avenue.
Okay,
it's just that
that's what I misunderstood.
Yeah, you're right.
I missed it. Because 150,000, I thought it was talking about the whole length of the stream bank, but alas, no. Okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, this is one of the you're repairing masonry walls in a creek. It involves careful work.
But you couldn't replace it with natural and then still have a bridge. Is that it?
Right. There's no space.
Well, it's not space. It's like the road.
I see.
It's that stretch there. Yeah. That's why I'm trying to make an analogy to like it being a culvert on the road. It's really more like that type of scenario.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Rob, any other?
No, that's
okay. So I guess the next steps on that.
Yeah. So would this committee have any objection as part of my budget presentation to council next week, including this project and the request to Borough Council?
Yeah, it seems like we have to. Doesn't mean it's approved, but it needs to be like at least on the list. Would you agree?
Yeah, I just don't have a sense of the priorities, like if there's a higher, where it falls on the priority list. But yeah.
Right. No, I agree. It needs to be in the discussion because it does have to be done. That bridge is, as Eric pointed out, not terribly stable.
Oh, thank you all.
Okay. Potential action items for Borough Council. A quote from AMC Construction to fix the drainage and other issues at Haverford Avenue entrance of 100 Conway.
If I may, and then Jeff, I might want some help from both of you, actually, Jeff and Eric, on this. So looking at our facility study from KCBA from a few years ago, the borough borrowed money to implement the repairs from that study here at 100 Conway. And some of the items flagged were both the carpet and the upstairs and downstairs, as well as the entryway over there, Haverford Ave entrance. And the challenge with that entrance is the way it's situated. Water, when it rains, will pull in front of the motion sensor doors, making it more difficult to get into the building. And also will even get onto the carpet near the entryway, ruining that carpet in that area. Also, numerous folks in the public and council have noted with the current bricks we have there, you can't really mount things to those. So our efforts to do like bike racks and benches and that sort of thing over there have been much more complicated than they otherwise would be. So to that end, Jeff met with the owner of AMC, who's done some other projects for the borough recently, such as the Hanson Ave streetlight pillar, sidewalks around 100 Conway and 201 Sabine, and he's consistently been the low bidder on projects we put out to bid. So Jeff met with Tony. They talked through some ideas about how to fix all of these problems, as well as create a rain garden out there. And I'll let Jeff speak to the solution they've come up with.
Yeah, so just to speak to that, trying to regrade, that front patio would just be a constant battle year after year. Over time, your base materials, your patios, they sink, they move, So when I met with Tony, we had discussed about putting a channel drain in front of each door, piping that to a central drain in the patio, and then running that pipe out to that little triangular planting bed along the sidewalk to where we would be able to modify the soil in there and select plant material in there, to just create a little, garden there, to effectively hold a good bit of the water from this front patio rather than just washing down the handicap ramp and down the front to the sidewalk. It's let's capture it and put it out front in the planting space. The idea kind of came collectively with Eric and our crew out there that we all kind of feel that would be the best route to take, to put a drain in front of each door in case we do get a heavy precipitation event and that it's all piped right out and it's running smoothly.
And the other item I always forget to mention, Jeff, you could speak to, is also the repairs to the front stairs there, the Haverford entrance.
So just in, we stand a better chance of catching that grade to everything if we replace them as well. So if we tear out, the 4 or 5, walking up, take up the patio, because then we can set our forms, to just have a right angle to where we will never have a water issue of it entering the building.
Well, it's also worth noting that those front steps are kind of rusted out at this point, so it's not the most. That's our main entrance, right? I mean, people don't come in the other. This is the main entrance, right? So, and I think also it's the case that you've been, even though it's budgeted, you've been reluctant to replace the carpet in the main hallway. Because it gets wet.
Yeah, I didn't want to replace the carpet just to get a bunch of water on it. Yeah.
Right.
So I think this project would improve accessibility for the building, would improve stormwater management around the building, and would make it possible for us to be able to replace the carpet on the first floor of the building. And again, all of which is part of our 2018 KCBA facility study. And thankfully, with the borrowing, we have, the money to do that work. But, just wanted to make sure that this committee thought it made sense to do.
So is this a budget request or this is? No,
this is more of a, before, we spend some money, want to make sure we're on the right track here.
Do we need to vote on this or?
No, you don't need to vote on it. I just want to make sure that you all are comfortable with this. So that's fair.
Rob or Michelle, any comments?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Seems like the right solution.
I mean, it's our front entrance and it's not looking so great right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you. I think that's a good solution, so.
Okay, so moving on to current borough projects, and just reminder, we want to try to leave some time for a comment. The bridge, if you have a few words to say on that.
Sure. So as we discussed at the August Borough Council meeting, we had that meeting with Jen Regal from Pannoni. I'm not sorry, not Jen Regal, with Jim Markman from Pannoni. He's taken more of he's taken an active role in the project. Given the concerns the borough had about the time frame on the bridge project, he's been attending the bi-weekly meetings we have about the bridge. And, I'm definitely glad to have him there. I think he's, definitely a positive force for helping us make sure that we get the bridge done. And, I'm glad that Pannoni is, allocating him and other resources to, prioritize, not to say they weren't before, but, to help make sure that this project meets its timelines and its goals that, myself and members of council have expressed to the public. So he's been involved. We had our meeting the other day. The most recent project schedule was included in your packet. If there's any other questions, specific questions.
Didn't you also update the schedule in the weekly newsletter? Or
Yeah, so the web page for the bridge page on the borough website, we also did a pretty thorough update too. And so any residents who want to take a look at that, that's a good one-page kind of summary of what all's going on. And the borough has, to its credit, in the last year has made a number of accomplishments and moved forward a lot of goals on the bridge between securing all the right-of-ways. We have our construction inspector in place. We, finished up what we wanted to do with the bridge art. So there are a lot of places where we've made a lot of good progress, and and we're still looking like in spring of 2023, we'll have a bridge in progress.
Well, so let's just put one caveat out about that, which is that the first beginning cycle of a bridge project is drawing things and measuring and all that. It's not as much.
March 1, there won't be a wrecking ball or crane out there, but it should all be underway. We've been making sure all the funding is in place. All that looks pretty good. So my understanding was that this week, final design plans were going to be submitted to PennDOT and Amtrak for review. So that'll be another big step forward for the bridge project.
Well, so just to highlight the importance of having this more senior person, from Pannoni, is it, present at the meetings. It's not so much that the more senior person you have, if he sees that the project needs more resources, he has those at his disposal, whereas the project engineer can't necessarily pull people in from other groups because they're not as senior. So that's why we pushed to have someone more senior come in, because we just didn't want to have this opportunity for the project to be delayed because of the engineering. It's had plenty of delays for other reasons over the last 10 years, but we're just where we are right now. We're trying to maintain, the current set of dates.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything about any of these other projects that you want to highlight?
I guess I'll just mention with sure.
Yeah, so the stormwater bump outs, which you guys awarded that contract earlier this was this month. The contracts have been sent to the contractor. They're returning them now. The pre-construction meeting has been scheduled. So we anticipate construction on that project should be starting in the next week or two. And it should not be, it's only going to be in about a month. It's not that large of a scope of a project for a contractor to do. And they are supposed to be coming in, installing them, and then by November, Jeff will be able to put in some landscaping. So
we have confidence in this contract.
We do, and the contractor is one of our regular, we work with them on a pretty broad spectrum areas. I think
you know what, I'm raising the issue because we've had some challenges recently.
Correct. This contractor is well known to us to do. We're actually doing another project for them somewhere else, right?
And there's no like supply chain issue?
No, the scope of this work is concrete and asphalt, and it's a much, the regular materials. There's no like long pipe fillet for this. And the amount of pipe we're using is like 30 feet, not 400 feet, so.
Okay, any other comments on any of the other projects?
Nothing beyond what was in the memo provided.
So I guess, barring any other new business from Rob or Michelle?
No, I don't have anything else.
I guess we can open up to public comment then. If you could just state your name and address, and then say what you'd like to.
John Constantine, 400 that coming here to see what's going on in your work, your projects, that right through the NOMI report and stuff, and it's also things about hundreds of thousands of dollars for windows and stuff like that. So I'm very concerned, but hearing a woman that there are alternatives, to look at some less expensive ways to mitigate the air leakage. I think that there is, looking at that report, the temperature was maintained pretty consistent in all rooms. One room downstairs was at 74 degrees consistently throughout the day. So I would assume that air leakage would have dropped that temperature some, throughout the day.
And just we don't always get public comment at these meetings. I'd love to know if you had any comments on anything else you've heard today. Just because we
with the heater itself, they'll have an annual inspection of that. Is there contract get us?
Yeah, that's actually.
When they say something's last day, is it going to die in the next 3 months, or maybe someone can come out and look at it and do the $80 inspection and say, yeah, you're good to go, just like a normal homeowner does.
Right. It's just that we had a similar issue, but with the air conditioning, but they couldn't get the parts. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, that's a really great point, and thank you for taking the time to read the audit and all that kind of thing. With our new liability insurer that council selected last week, I had a call, me and Michelle Carroll had a call with them yesterday talking through the benefits of being in their insurance trust and all that. And one of them that was brought to our attention is a annual boiler inspection. So they actually, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this while we were talking about it. So they asked me to send them info on where all the boilers are that we have between this building, 80 Windsor and 201 Sabine, and they're going to have someone from a Hartford boiler come out each year to look at it and inspect each of those boilers.
I'm sorry, this is
What I think is that going to fall in the next week or about years, and we get to our bridge there, 10 years before we got through that, how dire is the freedom, we're saying put it into the budget for 2023.
it's being put into the budget request, right? So the price of that and like 8 other things will be there, and then we'll have to prioritize those. And obviously,
But it may not need to be done in 2023. I think you foresee that it's.
So I think it's one of the projects that needs to be done. Public Works has been keeping an eye on it. At this point, we've been keeping an eye on it for about 2 years now. So it's not getting any better. It's kind of the point. And anybody, you're welcome to go out and take a look. If you see down,
You say that's better.
Yeah.
How worse.
Well, it's going to continue to lose stones. So the baskets have actually, the wire on the bottom baskets have failed, and it's losing more and more stone.
Yeah, so you have a full perspective on how higher.
Right. So let me just ask you one other question, because this is my first meeting and I didn't do this correctly. Could you just say your name one more time?
John.
I do it. 400 Arbor, 400 North Arbor.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
I didn't want to interrupt in the middle of it, but just from my point of view, like through the Zoom connection, I gather it's John. I couldn't hear everything that he said was like, I'm not trying to describe it. I think he's maybe too far from the owl mic. So I'm just wondering if.
The raise right now is that on these, when you listen to them online, you really can't hear the meetings
Yeah, that's
clearly.
that's a great point.
And the last two were not posted, so I don't know. I'm listening.
Well, the one before this was council.
Okay.
And I don't know about the previous one.
Yeah, actually, that's Michelle and John both bring up really good points with that. Something we've been looking into with help from Jim Spear, who for a long time with the Civic Association recorded these meetings, is actually they do make a microphone extender for the owl. We've been looking into getting that to fix that problem when we're in this room. As well as we've also looked into the possibility of actually getting a second owl and like pairing them up together again, just so we get better audio coverage for anyone who's doing Zoom, especially when we're in the big room here.
And so one of the, of course that doesn't help, but one of the things we had done in other meetings when people spoke up is we had the person come closer to the owl and ask them to speak more loudly.
Sure.
So we noted. And do you know about the July meeting? Is that recording not up? I thought it was. I thought I saw that.
I mean, I'll definitely double check, absolutely, because it should. If it isn't, I definitely want it up there. So we'll check.
Yeah, I think I saw it. Okay. Barring no other comments, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I move to adjourn.
Sure.
A second?
All in favor? Thank you. The meeting adjourned at 1:47 p.m.
Thank you.